President Joe Biden has decided to step away from the
Yeah.
2024 race. And I mean, I think a lot of people expected it. He puts the country above himself. And I'm wondering, when you first saw the news, what your thoughts were.
I mean, I knew that Saturday night they were bringing Biden new polling that the campaign had done. And I didn't know what it showed at that time. I do now. And that this would be among the reasons he would decide. Had nothing to do with health. It had nothing to do with age. It had nothing to do with those ridiculous op-ed columns about, oh, Jill Biden wants to stay first lady and blah, blah, blah. They brought in polling. Basically, it showed he had no path to victory at all.
Mm-hmm.
That not only had support caved in all of the swing states, the only one he was close in public polls had been Wisconsin, but the others he was falling. But now, not only had he fallen badly in those states, but Virginia and New Mexico were now in play, which meant that they would have to spend time and a lot of money in two states where they didn't expect to have to spend a nickel. And that's when Biden knew the dig was up. Apparently, he made the decision Saturday night. The official announcement was Sunday, but it was the polling. The polling was disastrous.
How important was it for President Biden, moments after saying, I'm going to step away from the race, to throw his endorsement right behind Vice President Kamala Harris?
There wasn't any other possibility. It's too late for anybody to get involved. Money, since it was the Biden-Harris campaign, money from that campaign, money for the campaign headquarters in Delaware, all of that immediately transfers to Harris, no problem. They don't have to start from scratch. And that was very, very important. It's very late in the game to be starting a whole campaign group and trying to raise money from zero and all of that. Despite op-ed columnists, please don't read them. They don't know anything. Going on about, well, it could be this person, it could be that person. It couldn't be anyone but Harris. Now, you may think that she's a good choice or a bad choice, but really at this stage of things in July, there wasn't any other choice. I mean, financially and in terms of organization, she was it.
Well, Nancy Pelosi threw her endorsement to Kamala Harris today. And according to CNN, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries will endorse as soon as today, according to their sources. There are Democratic congressional leaders planning to endorse her as well. Everyone is coming behind her. And you had a Facebook post over the weekend that, before I even had a chance to read it, people were emailing it to me, messaging it to me, and tagging my name, saying, you got to read what Gil Gross has to say. You're thinking that the candidacy of Kamala Harris could actually be a good thing for the country.
Well, it could be a good thing for the
Democrats.
And considering, what I think of Donald Trump, that's a good thing for the country.
That's right.
If the Republicans are running somebody else, who knows, but they're not. And it's a good thing for the Democrats because of some unique situations. Look, we're talking about three battleground states that matter: Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. None of the rest of it matters. And
did you mean to say Pennsylvania twice?
No, I'm sorry. Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin.
Okay, got it.
Okay. I, as a former resident of Pennsylvania, I could say, well, it's because Pennsylvania is twice as important. It is. Those are the three states that are going to decide the election. And it's a heavy burden because the Democrats have to carry all three of those states. Other states don't matter. And I know people look at national polls, and people on TV love, and on the radio, I'm sure, love to talk about national polls. National polls are meaningless and stupid, not because they're necessarily wrong, but because it's not how we pick a president. People say, oh, but the poll said that Hillary Clinton was leading Trump. Yeah, she was. And she got 3 million more votes than he did. The thing is, again, that's not how we pick a president. Joe Biden got 7 million more votes than Donald Trump, but only 46,000 of those votes mattered. We pick by the Electoral College. You might hate it. It's not going anywhere. It's not changing. It's how our nation came into being, along with 2 senators for every state, because small states like Delaware, Rhode Island were going, oh my gosh, Virginia, Massachusetts, New York, and Pennsylvania are just going to rule the country. Yeah. We need some assurance that small states have a perhaps outsized say and can beat that. So the Electoral College comes into being, and you will never get the necessary constitutional amendment votes to change that because of the number of states. So set that aside. Forget the national polls. It's not how we pick a president. And in most of the states are either blue or red. So it doesn't matter. Some people are saying, oh, no one in Texas is going to vote for Kamala Harris. Who cares? I mean, they weren't going to vote for Biden, won't vote for any Democrat.
Sure.
Probably not in our lifetime. It doesn't matter. I've heard people say, oh, maybe it's too late to get her name on the ballot in Ohio. Again, who cares? The Democrats aren't carrying Ohio. Plus, remember, when people talk about getting your name on the ballot, it's not as if you're voting for Joe Biden in Ohio. You're voting for his electors. Mm-hmm. And once their candidate is out, in most states, they can do what they want. In all states, after the first ballot, they can do what they want. So the worst thing that would possibly happen for Harris is she'd have to wait for the second ballot to the convention. But again, you're not voting for Joe Biden. It doesn't matter whether his name is still on there. You're voting for his electors, and if his electors are going to vote for Harris, Harris is the nominee. So there you go. Now, on the Facebook page. So what I posited, and this is still a steep climb for Democrats, because they are still behind in all of these states. So this is still a problem. But there are some unique things Harris brings to.
Oh, I lost audio with you. You knocked into something, I think. You knocked your microphone and maybe a connection came loose. Oh, there you are. I hear you once again. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, there you are.
Nothing, I didn't touch anything. I didn't touch anything. And in fact, I'm on my cell phone. So
okay.
Maybe that's the problem. Those 3 states.
Right.
One of the reasons Biden won them last time is because African Americans showed up in big numbers. They had not shown up for Hillary, and they regretted it, especially Wisconsin. So African Americans in Milwaukee and Philadelphia and Detroit showed up big for Biden, and he carried it. The feeling in those communities has been, and it's shown in the state polling, that they don't think Biden did very much. They don't like Trump. It's not like they're being converted to Trump voters. They're just like, you know what? I don't have a dog in this fight. And this was a rare presidential election in that it seems to have been decided or being decided by, well, who do you hate the least?
Yep.
Because both Trump and Biden had huge unfavorable numbers. So getting people to the poll, this election's not going to be about, whether somebody who was a Trump voter magically turns to Harris, or a Biden voter magically turns to Trump or something. This is going to be about turnout.
Yep.
So there's a possibility. And again, remember, the Democrats are starting from behind. So they need this. But Biden showed no signs of getting those people to the polls. Plus, he was losing people again in Virginia and even New Mexico, where you were talking about Hispanic vote for the most part walking away from him.
I saw even possibly New Hampshire as well.
Possibly New Hampshire.
Yeah.
New Hampshire's not a big deal. In New Mexico, all in all, isn't the huge.
It's an indicator that there's a big problem, right?
It's an indicator it's a big problem. He wasn't connecting anymore. And this was less about age. And we really shouldn't be talking about age, but I'll get to that. This was really not so much about age as, well, we put you in because you had this record of doing stuff for us and taking us into consideration. And Democrats, let's face it, always do this with minorities. Then once we elected you, you kind of took us for granted. Nothing happened. You didn't do anything. So, sorry, you owe us. We don't owe you. Goodbye. And even though you can say, well, yeah, but if you don't vote for them, things are going to get worse. It's still something that people feel that you didn't do anything for me. I put you in office. I'm not coming out for you again. I may not vote for anybody unless there's a big state election or something like that. I may just not show up.
It's so
Harris has a
surprising
chance
to
to
me
do
that
any
people
of
think
that.
it's so surprising to me. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
Yeah,
when
go
you
ahead.
talk about whether or not voters feel like President Biden has done anything for them, I feel like he's trying to get student loans erased for many people who are in debt,
Yeah,
right? I mean, he's got the infrastructure bill happening so that America is stronger when you look around at our bridges and our roadways and everything else, and jobs have increased. So why do people think he hasn't done anything for them?
Democrats are terrible at advertising for themselves.
Mm,
How many ads have you seen about that? How
none.
much have you seen if you tune in? Not that conservatives watch MSNBC any more than liberals watch Fox, but in trying to drum up the vote and get people out, how many ads have you seen about we put all these people to work building bridges and all of this
Hmm.
stuff, and we're saving your lives because look at what happened and in the bridge in Minneapolis, St. Paul, or look what happened to the I-95
Yeah.
bridge in Pennsylvania. Oh
Hmm.
my gosh, Democrats are fixing that because of the infrastructure bill. When's the last ad you saw about that?
Yeah.
I mean, all of the cable networks go on and on and on about not that it's not important, but it's not changing any votes. MSNBC and CNN cannot get enough of Trump on trial. Trump's in court.
Yeah.
Voters don't care. And now, some people are watching this, listening to this, and going, oh, but I care. But you're probably somebody who already made up your mind. You probably weren't somebody who was considering Trump.
Hmm.
In terms of swing voters, however many of them may exist, and again, most of the swing voters are swinging between voting and not voting,
Right.
showing up or not showing up. In terms of swing voters, the economy is number one. And number two, which is interesting, is immigration. And this whole thing that Trump has sold people on, and Fox News has sold people on, that there's an immigrant crime problem, which there isn't. Statistically, it's not there. It just isn't there. But they've convinced people. It's gone from voters just a month ago, 20% of the voters thinking it was a problem, up to 28%.
Hmm.
It's become the number two issue behind the economy. On what you were talking about the economy, yes, unemployment's at a 50-year low. Really, it's even better than that because 50 years ago, you had a lot of people who might otherwise have been considered employable in Vietnam. So, out of a non war populace, this is an incredible number in terms of unemployment. A ton of new jobs, 750,000 new manufacturing jobs were created, 11 million more jobs were created during the Biden administration. We can go a record number of small businesses were started in that time frame. Did I do a good job of advertising that? No. Plus, you've had problems that affect people day to day, which the administration, not that they could do things about, Kim, because presidents only have so, and this be true for Trump as well, only have so much control over the economy. It's actually not much. It's kind of a roll of the dice how the economy does when you're president. That all said, they could have come up with bills to help people buy homes at a
Yeah.
time of high home costs. They
Hmm.
could have come up with bills to help people in the economy. They could have done a lot of things. They haven't because Biden, as a creature of the Senate, has been very, very cautious, and Schumer has too, about introducing bills that fail because the Republicans won't vote for it.
Right.
They think that shows failure and a lack of power, rather than showing, hey, you aren't getting these medications, you can't afford these medications,
Right.
even if you're on Medicare. Thank the Republicans for that. You can't
Hmm.
afford this. Thank the Republicans for that. And on and on and on. But that's something Biden and Schumer have not wanted to do. Whether Harris is going to be different, we don't know.
Well, if they have a hard time, as you say, advertising the things they did do, then they'll have a real hard time advertising the things they didn't do. But I want to go
Yeah,
back to your Facebook post because I keep
yeah,
derailing you from the topic.
that's okay.
Again, let's re-rack it and set it because you say that the candidacy of Kamala Harris could benefit Democrats. So tell me how.
Okay, so we're talking mainly about turnout in those states.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the voters who didn't show up or felt that Biden didn't care about them. Remember how Hillary loses in part to Donald Trump. A couple of weeks before that election, she was supposed to make several stops in Wisconsin. And her campaign people, who were morons, frankly, decided, oh, we don't need to do that. We have this election in the bag. Who needs Wisconsin? They needed Wisconsin. They lost Wisconsin by about 22,000 votes. If the populace in Milwaukee had shown up for her, and if it seemed like she cared about them and wanted them, Hillary Clinton probably wins that election. The same thing was hurting Biden this year. It's like, where have you been? He gets back to Pennsylvania every once in a while because it's right near his home state of Delaware, and he has roots there in Scranton and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But, Joe, where have you been in Michigan and Wisconsin? You knew that these states were important for 2024. So that's basically what Kamala do. She can spur turnout again in Milwaukee, Detroit, and Philadelphia. If she can do that, then she can win. This is not about, again, turning Trump voters to Harris voters. This is about turning out people who had decided, you know what, two people I hate, they're not going to do anything for me, the hell with them.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Let's take a couple of comments.
Yeah.
We have one of them coming in saying, well, let's look at this one. Just Give Me Truth says, Kamala is qualified on paper, but not in popularity or in deeds. Maybe you have a point in popularity right now. However, in deeds, I think she's done more and been tasked with more than most vice presidents are.
Nah, not so much.
I mean,
She's no Mondale.
she went on the reproductive rights
Yes.
tour. She's been tasked with dealing with immigration issues at the border. So, I mean, I don't know, those are a couple big issues dumped in her lap.
So let's look at those. They gave her abortion because even though Biden is all for choice, he's Catholic and he's uncomfortable with it. And asked questions about it, he sometimes seems to hedge. It's totally understandable. It's like, well, this is my religion, but I understand as president, my religion isn't the country's religion. And that's a great intellectual position.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, but he has a hard time selling it to a crowd. Mm-hmm. That's one thing. They gave her immigration, but she's been kind of dicey on immigration. When you look at specific proposals and things from her, she's it's been hard to ferret out exactly where she is on things. Now, what we don't know, and we're about to find out, is how much of that is her personal feelings and how much of that is because she's carrying water for the Biden administration, which has been all over the place in immigration. They've been all in favor of the Dreamers and all of that, but when they saw immigration becoming an issue that Trump and Fox News were pushing, rather than fighting it and saying, these stats are completely made up. These incidents that you're pointing out, the guy who gave the two middle fingers and everything, that guy turned out, to have been wrongly arrested. He didn't do anything. That's what the middle fingers were about. He wasn't giving the middle fingers to America, as Trump and Fox were saying. He was doing it because they picked up the wrong guy. There's been a ton of things like that. But again, they haven't been on the attack on these things. So Biden, at first was kind of progressive in immigration, and then he moved away from that. Where Harris is, and this is going to be true of a lot of issues now that she's going to be her own person, we're not exactly certain. It comes with the vice presidency. It's not, her fault, but And also, she has not had a great relationship with Biden, despite what they're saying. Her
Mm-hmm.
camps have been opposed to one another. Biden picked her for various political reasons, also because she was a close friend of Beau, which carries a lot of water with Joe Biden. That said, he never totally forgave her for her attack on his past views on busing and her attack in that primary, which was one of the few attacks during the Democratic primaries that kind of got to him, even though it didn't do much for her candidacy overall. Her staffs don't like each other. And one of the problems that we'll wait to see with Kamala is she's gone through a lot of staff. Uh, she comes on to them like a prosecutor, according to people there. Now you can say, well, if
She
you're thin
is.
skinned, yeah, and you can say if you're thin skinned, don't get into politics. You shouldn't be working for
The
the
pro
vice president or the president of the United States. That all said, uh, there was not a lot of closeness there, and they did not give her the amount of portfolio and everything that some other
Mm-hmm.
vice presidents have been given. So we'll see what she's like on her own. We haven't seen her on her own since that primary. Has she learned something? Maybe she's learned nothing. On the other hand, Bill Clinton, I remember at the Democratic convention 4 years before he was nominated and won, gave the worst convention speech I have ever seen in my life. He learned. Uh, Richard Nixon lost for governor of the state of California just a couple of years after he lost the presidency, barely to Kennedy. That's when he said he won't have Nixon to kick around anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Less than a decade later, he's president of the United States
Yeah.
because he learned. Other people, Howard Dean, we can go through a whole list of people. I remember Pete Wilson, not our friend Pete Wilson, the anchor, but the former
The
governor,
former governor. Yeah.
at a fundraiser in New York, coming up to my friend Ellen Fleischer when we were both at CBS, and Ellen going, who's going to vote for Pete Wilson, who was a very popular governor in California? And this campaign director said, and I'll never forget this quote, "The beaches of California are littered with the bleached bones of those who underestimate Pete Wilson."
Oh, wow.
Great. We stood there with our eyes like, really? Honest to God. Guess I'm telling you, nobody here at this to-do knows who the hell he is. He didn't learn. He
No.
conducted a national campaign as he did his California campaigns and got buried. People have different learning curves. And we don't know what hers is yet. She's never been in this kind of campaign where she is really up against somebody from another party and somebody with the kind of almost cult support that Donald Trump has. Yeah, we'll see.
Is it a done deal that Kamala Harris is the
Yes,
candidate? It's done.
yes.
There's no. You think there's no other open convention or shakeup at the convention that could happen that would knock her out of this role?
I don't know. Maybe it came out that she kidnapped a Lindbergh baby. I mean, no, nobody else has the money. I mean, this is as of 9:45 this morning because I was stuck at my auto dealer's service center all morning, and there was only so much work I could do at the same time. But as of 7:45 our time this morning, Act Blue, which is just one group collecting money for the Democrats, had collected since Biden endorsed Kamala Harris, had collected, let me make sure I've got the right figure. Yeah, here we are, $84 million.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Those are small contributors. That's not Anthea Disney. That's not George Clooney. That's not any of the big people who are withholding their money. So, yeah, nobody else is going to be able to collect that kind of money in the short period of time.
So if she is the nominee,
yeah,
which we think is a given, can we, last question, respond to teacher Lori, who talks about, she's sorry, she says, misogyny and anti-Semitism are alive and well in the United States. It's time to pick, she said, who will win and forget the idealism of who should be running. Work on the ideals after we actually win the election. So the question to you then is, if we have a Kamala Harris, can Kamala Harris win? Is America ready for a woman, and a woman of color at that? Because I already had my heart broken when the last woman who actually had a real shot, I felt was shot down because she was a woman.
She wasn't shot down because she was a woman. Not totally. There were some
it's how
people.
It felt. It's how
she
it
was
felt.
shot down because of a horrible campaign. It was a terrible campaign. This is something that Democrats don't like to talk about. The Hillary Clinton campaign was a terrible campaign.
It shouldn't have mattered how horrible the campaign was.
Look
who the other choice was.
It does matter. First of all, Trump didn't have a record yet. He'd only recently been, remember, a liberal Democrat.
Yep.
The Clintons went to his wedding.
Yep.
I mean, he gave millions of dollars. He gave
money to Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So the people weren't exactly sure what Trump was yet. He could be, as a lot of newcomers are, as Barack Obama was in his first, when he first ran. It's like he could be whoever you wanted him to be. That's not true anymore, which both works for him and also works against him. But it does matter how good your campaign is. I mean, this goes back to what I've been talking about from the beginning with you, Kim. You've got to get the voters out, and you've got to get them out in the states that tip the Electoral College. So that's the important thing. So we're talking about, can a woman, and we're talking about anti-Semites as well, even though, obviously she's not Jewish, but she may be reacting to people who are saying Josh Shapiro could be vice president.
Right.
Can they win? They have to win Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Pennsylvania has a Jewish governor. And Michigan has a very popular, far more popular than Trump or Harris, female governor, and on and on. So can they win those states? Yes. And that's all you have to do. Most of the rest of the states that matter in terms of Electoral College vote count are locked in blue or red. And the others, New Hampshire, are too small to make a difference.
All right.
So, that's what you have to do. I know, again, people are saying, oh, people in Kentucky, they'll never vote for, a woman who's half black and half Indian. Yeah, probably true. Guess what? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, absolutely.
This is a math problem. I hate to make it because we all want to talk about ideals, or, if you're Republican, you want to talk about, ooh, scary immigrants. They should have kept, Trump's father out. Oh, wait. It's a math problem.
Yeah.
You have to put your money and your politics and your workers on, who are on the ground in the states that carry the Electoral College.
Yeah.
Nothing else. California, we love our state. Doesn't matter. It's blue. New York, doesn't matter. Texas, huge state. It's red. It doesn't matter. Sometimes in local politics, yes, because local politics, and this is a major difference that everybody has to remember, in local politics, the popular vote counts. Presidential politics, it doesn't. It's the Electoral College. It's been our system. We're coming up on 250 years soon, So this is what we've got. And if you take your eyes off of that and worry about national polls and states you're not going to win anyhow, then you lose.
Gil Gross, thank you for being here. I'm going to try to wrangle you again before the Democratic National Convention, but I really appreciate you taking the time. It's always amazing to sit and have a conversation with you. Oh, I lost your audio once again, but it happened at the perfect time. Bye, Gil Gross. See you next time.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.